Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar. My name's Ollie. I will be covering the user administration in Prima, so creating new users and setting up permissions and so on. If you have any questions or feedback, Mike will be on the live chat today, so if you send any messages during or after the session, feel free and Mike's there to speak with. Okay, so when you come into your administration area of Prima, so from the login area, that would be against the application, and then you'd select the administration from the drop down. When you sign in, you'd then be focused with this screen once you've selected user. So you click on user on the left hand side, and that brings up then your user administration. So within here, you create any users that are going to be using the system, and also for like the till users, etc. as well. If you use the till, you can set those up within this area. If you're creating a new user, you can hit the create new user at the bottom, and that'll then generate a new user, and you can fill in the information, which we'll go through shortly. Another option you've got within the user administration is to log off a user. So for example, network drops, user gets locked into Prima for whatever reason, you can come into this area and say, for example, if it was Jurgen Klopp, highlight the user and then log off user there. Okay, so that'll then log off the activity, that'll change to no, and then that user would then be able to activate a new session under that user from fresh. Okay, so in terms of creating a new user, you click the create new user, which I'll just open an existing one in this database, and that'll then populate this information. So from there then you can enter in your username, so this is what's going to show in Prima in the against as an account manager, any records in the system effectively. The login name would be what you use as the username when you come to log into Prima. The first time you log in, you can either type a password which you'll set, or you can log in with a blank password, so nothing in the password area, and then from the settings cog at the top of your Prima, you can go into there and then change your password that way as well. If you've forgotten it for whatever reason, you can contact the team and we can reset that as well. That's not a problem. User level, so there's a few different user levels in the system. So a boss user would be effectively can do anything in the system as it's a boss user. A normal user would be if you wanted to restrict the user. So in this instance, this user is set as a normal user, and then on your right hand side then you've got the option for permissions. So from there then you can click into the permissions and restrict what areas of the system and what other users this person can see. So for example, I don't want this user to be able to see anyone else's accounts apart from his own, and I don't want him to be able to do anything other than create sales orders and manage his own account. So I'll show you how you can do that shortly as well. The other user levels are just options in terms of for the till, and if you're wanting to remove them out of the system as well. So it's just a status that you would set. So former user or delete user wouldn't actually delete out of this area, it would just change the status, and then when you log into the Prima client, that user wouldn't show up in your options in terms of if you're searching on a particular salesperson or something like that. Department you set to office. Purchase level, so this one here is basically if the user is going to be doing purchasing, this is the purchase level per order. So this current user is set to the figure in there for one purchase order. So if, for example, you didn't want them to have a purchase order for more than £1,000, £5,000 rather, or something like that, you just enter that into here. So that's a per order basis. Change sales cost. So this user is allowed to change the sales cost within the sales order. So what that effectively allows the user to do is against the sales line, once it's entered onto the order, you've got a suppliers option in the bottom area, which I'll just show you actually probably be better. So I'll just open up a sales order, and then against the sales order line, you've got your supplier cost prices to choose from. So if I just open that one for example, not the best connection in the meeting room today, apologies for the delay. Okay, and then double click one of the lines, and then in one of these tabs at the bottom, which is the supplier cost prices, this then allows you to say, right, okay, well actually I want it to be for Trueline, I want it to be for Beta. You double click that, and then that'll then populate the order with the cost price you've just selected and the supplier as well. If the user was set to no for that, they won't be able to do that. So basically what that's stopping the user from doing is making any changes or making buying decisions which you can allow your purchasing people to do, or if you want them to be able to change the sales cost, they can do so. If it was set to no, what you can do against the order is, for example, if they're not allowed to change the cost in here but they have agreed a special price with your supplier or something along those lines, you can just use the buy notes, which transfers through to your requirements for whoever's doing the purchasing to see that as well. Okay, use a default depot. So if you're using multiple depots in the system, you can assign which one is the default when it logs into the system. Van route. So if you're using van routes in the system for your deliveries, you can assign this user to a particular van route at default. Travel costs, labour costs, travelling charge and labour charge. This is for the FSM area of Prima. So if, for example, you were sending a particular user, so Jurgen Klopp in this instance, to an office fitting or installing furniture or something along those lines, you can associate a default cost and charge against this user, which will then filter through to the FSM side of things as well. So it'll pull through, for example, if the travel cost is at default £50, enter that into the admin here, and that'll pull through to those areas as well. In the bottom section, you've got the email option. So you can enter in the email address here, and you can also set, if you want to, when you send an email from the system, so whether it's from supporter or accounts or something along those lines, when it reaches your customer, you can set a reply to. So when they click reply on that email, it'll then, in this instance, default to Jurgen Klopp at lfc.co.uk. What you can do now in the version that's not currently released to the customers, it's with testing at the moment, with the customer services team and development. But basically, what you can do in the next service pack release is you can send an email from Prima from a certain email account. So within this test database, we've not got anything set up, but effectively what you could have is in Prima you could have an invoices or accounts at or credit control at, something along those lines, at yourcompanyname.co.uk. You could have inquiries at, sales at, anything along those lines at yourcompany.co.uk. And then from there, what you could do is say, right, okay, for all of Jurgen's emails to be sent from the system, as he mainly does sales orders, we're going to send this users from sales at sales@.co.uk, whatever. And then if it was say for example an accounts user, you could then say, right, okay, well, but for this user, we'll send it out the system from accounts at .co.uk. So you can, that'll be the next release that's being released soon. Okay, if the user was a boss user, they'd have the ability to be able to perform a database upgrade, which basically, when we roll out an upgrade to the customer base, it'll prompt that user that's selected with the option to upgrade. So you can put off the upgrade, which you don't advise, but if, for example, it was buying time, you wanted to do it in the morning instead or something along those lines, you can do. Allow user to perform the maintenance job. So within your system, within the Prima client, you can perform maintenance tasks. So for example, changing an invoice back to outstanding, changing a sales cost on an order. That's why it's restricted to only certain users, because, for example, a sales user could go into that maintenance tool and change the costs against the order to alter the figures. So it's restricting those users who can use the maintenance job is quite important. User can be an account manager, so as it says there, user can be an account manager in the system. Okay, for example, if it was a normal user, and with this particular example I've got ready for you here, I've set it so the user can only be accessing his own accounts and creating orders and quotes for his own customers. So within this permissions here, this is where you go to say what they can and can't do. So you can see straight away in the system modules, he's not able to do anything in here. So you can see not allowed to view it, can't update it, can't insert new ones, can't delete, and can't manage any of these areas. So if I go to the drop down and have a look at the sales order processing, you can see then, right, okay, well, he actually can view all these areas, but he can't update the credits and the invoices, and he can go and update orders, order pads, quotes, etc. So from these permissions areas, you can say, right, okay, well, I don't want him to see catalogs, I don't want him to see purchase ordering. So per user, you can totally strip it down and restrict exactly what you want that user to see or to not to see. So I've done a test one here, so I'll show you that in a second. And what you can also do is account permissions here, which basically who can see this user, which Andrew Connolly, Andrew Rogers can all see Jurgen's stuff in the system, but he actually can't see any of their stuff. So you can add them in, so you can say, right, okay, well actually, as he's working quite closely with Jack, I want him to see his stuff as well. So you can add those in. You can remove them as well. So if you don't want to see that, hit remove, and then away you go. And the same with who can view this user as well. So all the boss users at default will be able to see this user as well. Groups, so you can group them together as well. So if, for example, he's in the all users group at the moment, but you can split them down into certain user groups in there. So it could be the boss users, the engineers, the sales, etc. You can associate them to a particular group as well. Okay, so I've got the login live with his user here. So for example, he just logged into Prima, and just to give you a viewpoint of how he would see the system, he would be able to see all these down the left hand side, but if he tried to access, for example, purchase orders, it just tell him that it's not authorized to access that area. If you wanted to create an order, want to hit the new record at the top there, he's only restricted to particular areas in the system. So it could be the case, hits new sales order, and then if I run a search for all customers, it's only going to pull through his accounts in the system as well. Likewise, if you went into the company area and run a search, then from this area it would only be able to see his accounts as well. Okay, in comparison, so if I just close out of that user and have a look at my one, so if I just open that, you can see there, boss user, can do everything in the system. I'll just close that and just open that user. And then from there, hit the new record, and you can see all the options that this user's got. So it can do absolutely everything in the system. So that's why setting a normal user and setting the restrictions is not necessarily important to some companies, but the companies that have new salespeople on, or restricting to just the sales team to be able to do the sales, the purchasing to do the purchasing, etc. You can have certain settings against the users as well. So yeah, that's everything for today. If you do have any questions, please ask away on the live chat. Mike will be there, and I'll be on there shortly as well. So yeah, any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks for your time, and have a great weekend. See you next week.